So we have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to just give a quick introduction. My name is Samantha Perry. I am the Deputy Director of the Office of Economic Empowerment. We are a department within the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer and Receiver General, Deborah Goldberg. And our office works on creating more access to financial education for Massachusetts residents. We work on promoting wage equality and helping families save for their children's future through our initiative Baby Steps Savings Plan. We will drop some links in the chat throughout the webinar with links to some of our programs. Today, we're really excited to have you all join us to learn a bit more about our partnership with Money Experience, a digital financial education tool that we have partnered with specifically to offer to Massachusetts students and young adults. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Sarah, who's going to talk a little bit more about our partnership, but just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to Money Experience for joining us today and to all of you. So without further ado, Sarah, take it from here.
Thanks, Samantha. I'm Sarah. I'm a program officer with the Office of Economic Empowerment. And actually, I think the team from Money Experience, if you'd like to introduce yourselves, let's do that now, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the collaboration.
Sounds good. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Zoe Bright-Neal. I am the head of marketing here at Money Experience, and I'm joined today by Tim Cooley, who is our VP of Sales and Customer Success, and by Evan Fox, who is our partnerships manager. So if you have any questions during our presentation, feel free to jump in the chat. One of us will be able to take care of you. And as always, feel free to, jump in and ask questions. Evan, Tim, you want to say hi? Are you all good?
Hello.
Yeah, everyone, thanks for joining us here. And I'm going to let Zoe take over to tell you more about the program. But yeah, excited to be here, and please ask away, and we are happy to answer any questions that come through.
Perfect. All right, Sarah, I will move on and let you take over again.
Thanks, Zoe. So OEE has partnered with Money Experience to offer this digital financial education program. Encouraging and offering financial education to students and people early in their careers is central to our mission of economic empowerment, which is why we've purchased licenses from Money Experience, allowing us to offer this program free of cost. Initially geared towards community college students in Massachusetts, we've expanded this program to college-age students, interns, and individuals looking to plan for their financial futures. If you're a student or intern over the age of 18, or if you are a representative from a community college, state university, or internship provider, you can request licenses using the link we will include in the chat, and there will be many links in the chat throughout this presentation. While our collaboration is suited towards adults over the age of 18, our office provides other programming for younger students interested in developing basic personal finance skills. If you're interested in learning more about this program, you can follow the link, which will be included in the chat shortly, or reach out to myself or Samantha to learn more. And I'll turn it back over to Zoe.
Thank you. All right, so I know we have a variety of people on the call today, so I'm going to try to cater a little bit to everyone. I know there's some representatives of intern programs, of colleges and universities within Massachusetts. We're going to try to get you the information that you need. I know we're also hoping there are some actual interns and students on the call today. So I'm just going to give a brief kind of introduction of how we see the world of financial literacy, why this might be relevant to either you or your students and interns, as well as kind of how we approach some of the existing challenges and what our program consists of. So I'll pause between sections, just make sure that we're all doing okay. Let me know if you have any questions. I will warn you in advance. Our whole team is Massachusetts based, and I live right next to MGH, so I apologize if there are any sirens in the background. Same for any dog woofing. I have one of those. So it adds a little color to the conversation. All right, so I'll get started here. First, I just want to dive into a couple basic financial literacy challenges. So this is kind of what we see as existing problems for young professionals and students going into the workforce right now, as well as some of the issues with existing or outdated financial literacy programs that aren't really dealing with things on a individualized and personalized level. So we're going to talk about some of those and then how we're trying to solve for them. So looking at this really applies to both millennials and Gen Z. I know that we've all lived this to an extent, but I just wanted to hit a couple of stats really quickly, just to, touch on the relevancy of all of this. What we see frequently is that there is a cycle of decision-making around finances that is not inclusive of long-term outcomes, or is not allowing individuals to think about their own long-term outcomes and see how their decisions are all intertwined. So for example, it's very frequent, very common to go gather a lot of student debt without having a clear picture of how you're going to pay that back, and then not being able to meet those bills on time, not being able to get the savings that you need later on to purchase a home. And then obviously with all of that, not being able to save for retirement. And I think it's a challenge that a lot of young people, myself included, are facing today. It's tough, especially, very relevant this month with all the economic news. So this is kind of why we're talking about this. We want to help tie together some of these themes and offer a program where folks can see themselves as individuals going through life and see how some of these decisions are going to impact their long-term outcomes. Another thing I wanted to talk about is some of our core focus is on engagement, implementation and reporting, as well as accessibility and diversity. So what we have seen a lot in the past, and I'm sure this is an example, there's a lot of prescriptive information out there and a lot of prescriptive programming. So I think all of you, students, teachers alike, have probably heard the, if you want to buy a home someday, just don't buy that latte every day. Just save that money and you'll get where you're looking to go. I think it's not very inclusive because often, you're then assuming that that person has latte money to begin with, right? And that they have the resources to, come up with a solution that would work around that, and that $5 a day, whatever it is going to get them a home in this economy. So what we're trying to do at Money Experience is really increase engagement and personalization, as well as give accessibility to people from all backgrounds, all learning styles. We want to make sure that it's very inclusive and is not making any assumptions about the people who are completing the program. So this is super important to us. On a personal level, I'm somebody who was really bad at math in high school. I was the kid in the back of the class every time, and I felt like because of that, I would not be good at money, or I would not be good at financial literacy. So I'm coming at this from that perspective in a very personal angle. And it's something that I think is really important to touch on. So we see that there's a lot of dry content out there, a lot of very prescriptive content. We see that, it requires a lot of instructors or people walking through the program to be experts. And we also see that level of kind of access or financial wellness to begin with assumed, and we really want to avoid that. So with that kind of context around what we do, I'm going to dive into what we are and what we do. What is Money Experience? So we were founded several years ago by right here in Massachusetts. We started in Cambridge, now we're based in Boston. And our whole goal is just to make personal finance education relevant, engaging, and accessible. Those are our big key things. So we're doing that in a variety of ways, but I'll walk you a little bit through our structure and how we approach it. So what you're going to see with a lot of tools and programs out there, and there are a ton of really, really good ones too, but they typically start with the how do I implement my decision? So if you're, for example, Googling what is a car loan, what is a mortgage, you're going to get an overview, but it's going to pretty much take you right into the tools and have you start filling out applications. So what we really wanted to do is zoom out and talk about why you should care, when it matters, and what your choices are. So this is where we start with that personalization. So for example, Evan might be interested in buying a home at a different point than me. So what we do is we talk about when it matters for you as an individual. So for example, it might be in Evan's 40s for him, it might be in my 30s for me, or it might be in my 60s for me. Maybe I'm very comfortable renting. But we try to zoom out and really talk about, okay, when does this matter? Why do I care about it in the first place? Do I want to build equity? Do I want to have a secure home environment for my family? What are my reasons for it? And then we get into what are your choices. So you can start thinking about, types of mortgages, different lenders, different things like that. And then we get into implementing your decision, which is a little bit further down the line. We also kind of are a great preemptive element to that to really engage folks before they actually go and use some of the tools out there that are offered. So it's very, very helpful in that way. So I'm going to just go over a quick review of how the program works, and then I'll show you a very brief video of the actual interface, which is really cool. I will tell you now, I am a former teacher. I'm a total nerd, so I love this kind of stuff. I'm really, really into what we do. So please feel free to stop me and say like, hey, I'm not actually sure how this works if I get a little bit too detailed and in the weeds. So what Money Experience is at its very base is a life simulator. So what we offer is an opportunity to explore your life from about now or wherever you are, all the way through to retirement. We do this in 9 life chapters. So you start more or less where you are. It might start a little bit before. So for example, if you're just starting an internship towards the end of college, might start you at the end of high school, and you're just going to map some of your decisions into the simulator. Like, hey, I decided to go to a Massachusetts state school. Here's the rough bucket of where my student loans are. Here's the type of career I'm interested in or interning in right now. And then we'll be able to help build your simulated future off of that. So we have a graphic novel built within the simulator. So this is an example of one of our characters. The characters age in each chapter with you. So this is Shane. Shane is, if you go through the program, you'll get to know him. He's somebody who's very into trending technology. He likes to buy that iPhone immediately upon release, things like that. So that means that he's spending a lot of money on those products. He works at a tech company in a big city, so his rent is high, and you see him go through all of these life changes where he's making these financial decisions, but also how they relate to his personal life. And we have a really wide, diverse cast of characters. I think nobody's gone through and not found somebody that they identified with in some way. So it really helps put the emotional context around some of the financial decisions, which can be very cool. So the actual functionality of it, when you're going into one of these 9 chapters, you're going to go through a certain flow. So to begin with, we set priorities. So we are focused very much on personal priorities and quality of life. And that means that we have you go in, there's 10 priorities to begin with. We're going to have you set those priorities for that life stage. So let's think about that when you're in your 20s. What priority is going to be your top priority in your 20s? For me, it was adventure. I was also very into having a lot of free time, and my community was really important. Then as you get into your 30s, you think about, okay, in the next chapter, how are my priorities going to change? Maybe family gets bumped up a little bit. Maybe security, you want to have a little bit more financial security in your 30s. Social good might be something that crops up for you. Do you want to start giving back to that community as well? So you think about in every single chapter how these might change, and therefore how you need to think about your financial decisions in preparation for those later phases of life. So you get very emotionally invested in your own simulated life. You really can see how your decisions play out long term. So then you go into the graphic novel, you see what other folks are doing in the graphic novel, what choices they're making. Are they, leasing or buying a car, for example, if they can afford one at all? Are they choosing to live in a rural place? Are they choosing to live in a city? What is the cost of living in those places? We talk about all of this. What level of education they're choosing to complete, if they're deciding to go to a local community college, a state school. We have all of these different options available. Then you're going to make your own choices. So having this context of, okay, I'm in this life phase, this is what my priorities are. You make your own life choices, you decide what you're going to do. And then you can add a couple optional ones on there. This is where you personalize it. You can open an additional credit card, for example, go through your options there, start your 401k, maybe go back to school later in life. If you want to get a master's, you want to do something like that, or maybe you didn't complete a degree to begin with. So there's a lot of optionality there. And then you see your results. So in your results, you're going to see your whole financial picture, and you're going to get an idea of your quality of life. And I'll go into that graphic in a minute. But basically what we're saying is success within our simulator is aligning your personal priorities with your choices. And then you get an image of a quality of life. So that just means, are you doing what is important to you? Are your decisions aligning with what is important to you? And if the answer is yes, your quality of life is high. And if the answer is no, maybe it's a little bit lower. So we'll go now into, and we'll see if this works, a quick video. I think it's really helpful. This is just 30 seconds. I think it's really helpful to see these elements that I'm talking about in action. So, you know, I think you'll get a quick idea of it. I'll talk over it a little bit and make some points. But this is really just a taste of kind of that interface. It's a chat interface with our guide who's asking you questions. It's very tech native, really, really fun to do. So I'll let this speak for itself a little bit, but here we go. All right, perfect. So this is where you would choose transit, for example. You get a lot of these apps that pop up. We have a dating app as well. This is how you're setting your priorities. So you're just dragging and dropping them in order at the beginning of every chapter. This is an example of a decision that you might make. So this is the college one, for example. This is a dating app. You have 529's retirement, and that's your quality of life right there. So it's very fun, very interactive. Here we go. There we go. And it really engages you. So I'm in my 30s. I've gone through this probably every couple of weeks for the last 4 years, and I never get bored. It's just one of those things that's really fun. You can redo, you can play with your decisions. It's very cool. So these are some of the topics that we go over. And just to clarify, I am speaking to the end user in some ways here. This is something I'll talk about a little bit in terms of how you can use with your students or in groups later down the line, but the way that the simulator functions is the same for everybody. So I'll kind of keep it broad for the moment. So we talk about paying for college, student loans, 529s, car buying, life insurance. We actually have a new feature that's really fun where you have wild cards pop up. So much like life, you might suddenly have a house that's flooded and you need to deal with. Did you get the insurance? Did you not? What situation are you in financially now? The way that it's currently set up, that won't impact you long term, but it's just a quick refresher of things that you don't have control over that might pop up and kind of complicate your financial life. So zooming back out a little bit, I want to just briefly touch on how this simulator and that functionality that you just saw ties into those core elements that we were talking about earlier. So personal priorities, this is huge for us. We want to make sure that it's individual. This is, you know, for using Evan as an example again, Evan's top priority might be career, and my top priority might be adventure still, or when we were in our 20s, for example. So Evan's version of success is not going to look like my version of success. Evan may be starting with a different financial picture than I am. And I may have, for example, because I was adventuring so much, very little savings after that phase of my life. So then we're not assuming a certain base level for everybody. And we're not saying, hey, you should be traveling more, Evan, and Zoe, you should be focusing on your career more. Because those are not the things that are important to us. That's not what our success is going to be based off of as individuals. So talking about quality of life, this is the rose. You saw this briefly in the video. The rose is, and this is what I'm talking about there, if you can see my mouse. But this is basically always on the right-hand side of your screen. So what that means is that as you're going through and making decisions, the big petals are the things you said were most important to you. And the little petals are the things that are a little bit less important to you. And as you're making decisions, those are filling in or emptying based on the decisions that you're making. So for example, if family is super important to me, and I choose a career where I'm not going to have any time with my family because I'm going to be working all the time, that's going to go down a little bit, but my career petal will go up a little bit. So this is also really important to me in this rose. So it's a decision for me. What do I want to do? Do I want to have more time at home, or do I want to have more time at the office? And that's a choice that I have to make. So it's very realistic. We're not sugarcoating anything, but we're just saying, hey, these are some of the decisions you have to make. Emotional context we've talked about, very important to us to make sure your financial life and your real life, I think, are often discussed like they're two different things, and they're not. Your everyday life is made up of a lot of decisions, many of which have financial implications. So we're really tying these things together because sometimes, let's say in a situation where you or a loved one has a health issue, you're in the hospital, you're dealing with something very emotional, you're also dealing with something very financially driven. So that's something that we have to be realistic about. And we have some vignettes with the graphic novel that actually illustrate that very situation and just kind of talk through the options. And then the big thing that I don't think I've touched on yet is empathy for your future self. So it's really easy to make decisions based on your current life status. I think we've all made decisions where we're like, I don't know how that's going to play out long term, but right now this is actually great, so I'm just going to go with it and hope that everything's fine. We want you to be thinking about that person who you're setting priorities for in your 30s or your 40s, who really cares about something that maybe is different than the things that you care about right now. So it's learning to understand how you're going to change and taking care of yourself in the future before you even get there, and empathizing with the decisions that you're going to have to make, which is really rewarding, actually. Once you start thinking about it that way, it changes the way that you interact with your financial decisions, with the apps that you have, with the tools that you use. You're thinking, how is this playing out into my 40s and 50s when I have kids I want to put through college, when I have a mortgage that I'm still paying? How does this work? So I also touch on a couple of the other core values that we have discussed. Diversity of goals, I dug into quite a bit, but this is just basically saying we all have different things that we're working towards. We all have different things that are important to us. We all have different backgrounds and perspectives. So this is really, really important that we're able to incorporate those into a program that is not going to then lecture you on why your decision is right or wrong, just playing out the way that it's playing out. Accessibility, we talked about, my motto is you don't have to be good at math to be good at money. That's especially true with all of the tools that we have these days, with smartphones in our pockets all of the time. Any type of learner can use this program. Any person of any sort of perspective, background, it's technically very accessible. And then expansive possibilities. So in a broader definition of success, these are very tied together in my mind. I mentioned earlier on, I'm a former teacher. I've actually taught money experience here in Massachusetts at Girls Inc. in Lynn, as well as some other places. But Girls Inc. really stood out to me because it was a variety of girls with very different backgrounds, but they all were in this area where they had been told pretty much their whole lives. And those girls were middle school, high school age, but they'd been told pretty much their whole lives that they were probably going to be a caretaker or a teacher. And they went into money experience and they were playing with the different careers. And one girl came up to me and she was like, wait, did you know that I can be a computer scientist? And I was like, yes, you can. She was like, but they make so much more money. And I was like, yeah. I was like, is that something that's important to you? Is that something that you want? And it just hadn't been something that had been offered. It hadn't been something that had been discussed in her classroom. And it made a huge difference to her. And, it might change 8 more times that week alone, but just knowing what's out there, knowing what your options are, knowing the types of careers that might not be obvious to you is part of what we're trying to do. And then again, supporting the broader definition of success. Success does not mean the same thing for everyone. So for Evan, for example, it might be, focusing on that career. For me, it might be focusing on adventure, whatever it is. If you're financial decisions are aligning with your personal priorities, that is your version of success. And that's what we're trying to hit here. So quick refresher, you can restart this, you can redo it. It will compare when you go through the simulator, it will compare your current run to your last run if you redo it. So you can say like, hey, I want to go back through and actually pay, you know, my student loans a little bit faster. What does that look like? I want to rent instead of owning. What does that look like? How does that change my long-term outcomes? And that's something that you can do. Do we have any questions before we go into reporting and effectiveness? Looks like George, here we go. Thank you. So the question is, having read the latest rave reviews by participants, what was the majority mode? Classroom, counselor, or other. So I can touch on this. We'll get a little bit into implementation as well later, but thank you for the question. This is a great one. So we actually, you can go through the program completely self-paced, and we're going to offer a link at the end of this. The OEE has generously put up a link where people can self-register and just go through the program on their own. Other than that, we see a lot of different, especially during COVID, we've seen a lot of different implementation methods. So a very common one is to have a workshop right at the beginning, talk about what mixed money experience is, just get into the basics of it, and then have students go through the first half on their own, have a touch point and be like, so what's happening so far? How are your decisions comparing? What's going on? And then completing it and having a wrap up session. So looking at your final report, talking about how that differs from other folks. If you do have a group going through this, we can get you access to the backend reporting, which I'm about to dive into. So you could reach out to either Tim or Sam or anyone on this call, and we can help set you up with that. There's a link to a form to fill out to get a group license and that access. And so there's a real variety, but I'd say probably self-paced and counselor we're seeing a lot lately with COVID especially, and with summer internships as they are. People grab time as they have it. So I will try to, I know I talk fast, so I apologize. I'll try to go through some of this without talking too fast. We just released a 2022 case study. We do one of these a year. And we're looking at how the outcomes of our program are aligning with our original mission statement to make all of these topics more accessible, to increase understanding and to make it engaging. So this year we were looking at a group of 1,800 participants. They were ages 14 to 36. And thank you, Sarah. I saw she just posted the link to the form where you can ask for a group license. So that is in the chat if anyone needs it. So back to the case study, this is from across the US, all different kinds of implementation methods. It's over a period that was completely during the pandemic, actually. So we had some in-person classes, we had a lot of virtual, and then both of our products, Essentials and Pro, were included. The OEE licenses that are available to you are Essentials, which is our original latest or our original greatest product. It starts after high school and walks you through the rest of life. So as I mentioned, if anybody is a little bit further along, has started an internship, whatever it is, you just map what you've done so far onto that first chapter, and then you build from there. So we see really big increases in understanding with all of the main topics. So saving for retirement, credit and loans, 401ks is always our biggest jump. There's not a super high understanding of what that is or how it might relate to you and your long-term personal priorities. So we see a really, really big jump there. I've also included a couple quotes here from students. We have a few later on as well, but we see very high levels of engagement. It's something that makes a big difference. We see, for example, if you're in college or if you're doing an internship and you're trying to decide what to do as your next career move, we see a lot of people go back through and make a couple different decisions and see how those outcomes play out long term, which can be really helpful. We also see, and this is where we're looking to really improve things. Engagement and comfortable and sort of comfort with the overall topic. It's very classic for money conversations to be taboo. It's something I think a lot of families are uncomfortable talking about. So part of our goal is to kind of create a waterfall of education where we are working with the original participant, and then you're taking that home or to your counselor or to your professor. It might even be somebody who's at your bank, whoever it is that you're looking to talk about this further with. You're going to them and you're having a serious conversation about money. So we saw a really high jump here in the likelihood of having a very serious conversation about money, which was huge for us, because that's what we really want. We want that level of engagement. We want folks to feel comfortable bringing these things up and saying, hey, I've actually taken on some credit card debt while I was in college. I'm really not sure how to manage it. I'm not sure how to, dig myself out of the spot and get to a better place. What do I do? I understand how it's going to impact me long term now, so I want to do something about it. And that's where we're seeing very high levels of engagement and of change, which is really exciting. And then again, not prescriptive, very individualized. We hear that in the feedback all the time. So it's overall very effective, very engaging, and exactly kind of what we were going for. So there's a few more quotes here from students. The simulation helped me analyze my future and gave me a glimpse of what to expect and what I should start doing to achieve my financial goals. That's just exactly what we want to hear. One that's not on here that I got recently from a college student was we asked for feedback at the beginning. It's an open text platform at the end rather, and it's an open text platform. And somebody just said in all caps, "Let me name my child," which was very funny to me for a number of reasons, but just implied the level of engagement, the amount of emotional, attachment that they had to the simulated life that they'd created to, want to be able to name their kids that they were then sending to school and sending to college and doing whatever they were doing with. They really, really cared. And so I love seeing stuff like that. Obviously, again, I'm a teacher, so I'm into that kind of stuff. It's very personal to me, but it's really, really cool to see. So just a quick overview of getting started. If you are looking to get access to Money Experience, these links are now both in the chat. Thank you so much, Sarah. So we have a landing page where you can go on, you can learn a little bit more about the program, or you can share it with your students, with your interns. There's a brief kind of welcome video that just explains who we are and what we do, and then how it works, what the steps are to sign up. And then we have this, in this particular slide, it looks small, but it's much bigger when you have the actual web page up, this get my login button. So it's that OEE yellow there. Click on that and it will walk you through the login process. One thing that I will highlight, when you sign up with an email through the landing page, you will get a verification email that often goes to spam, unfortunately. It's something that we're working on, but just check your spam. It will come from support, is what it's called, and then you just verify and you're good to go. So that one's easy peasy as soon as you know what's going on. Otherwise, what you can do is, as a group, so let's talk about implementation for a little bit. As a group, you can fill out a form, and the access to that is in the chat that Sarah posted. So you can fill out a form, and this basically just means that anyone running an internship program or a class at a Massachusetts state university or community college can get facilitator access. So you get access to the curriculum. There's a curriculum that goes with each lesson. It can be up to 10 to 12 hours long of class time, if that's something you're looking for, or much shorter, depending on your needs. So in the curriculum, we highlight, you can pick and choose activities, discussion guides, things like that. So you can get access to all of that. You'll also have access to reports, which is what we were basing that case study on. So you're essentially able to see, like, hey, where are my students in the program? Who's completed chapter 5 so far? Are they actually doing it? Which actually our problem is usually slowing students down as opposed to get them to go through it. We're like, hey, you need to wait. We're not on chapter 6 yet. This is something that you can get the discussion guides as well as promotional materials. So for example, Bridgewater State has a landing page that I know that they've been excited about, where they've been doing a little bit of giving students access to it through their and their OEE licenses that they're partnering with. So it's very exciting to see that happening on campus. They're also using it in class, which is very cool. So there's a lot of, and we're seeing that kind of pick up a little bit around the state. So you have a lot of different options. If you do get access as a group, you'll see this client dashboard. And this is where you can manage your classes and get your reports. So that will be very helpful for you if you are running a class or an internship program. So I
Hey,
think
Zoe,
I have, yeah.
we had a question from George, which is probably applicable right now, asking, do we need to sign up every semester for a class?
So great question in that scenario. So we have, and I'll let Sarah and Sam chime in here if needed. You will need a separate class. Basically, every user needs their own license because it is very individual, and it's something where you are having folks go in and they're reusing it and they have access to that license for up to a year. So for every new class that you set up, you will need to have a new class or new licenses. So for every semester, yes. And then the timing of that and the availability for OEE, I'll leave to Sam and Sarah, but for now, you can sign up to get your next class started. For example, I know George is using it at Bridgewater. So he would be able to go in and set up, fill out that form, get another class for the next semester and be good to go. And with that, I have talked very quickly and a lot for 36 minutes straight. So I will open it up a little bit to questions here. I also wanted to highlight, if you have any specific questions about money experience, we are accessible at tim@moneyexperience.com. That's Tim who's on this call. You can see his face, he's the best. So reach out to him if you're looking for access and lose one of the links or whatever it is. It's an easy to remember one. So feel free to hit me with questions or talk about, jump in with any comments or anything that you might have.
Yeah, so we've got one good question here. It's if you redo a section or the entire program, do you have access to both the first and second attempt?
Yes, short answer. So you can actually, you have access to the outcomes from both. So basically you can compare the outcomes from both run-throughs. You cannot go back, for example, if you're in chapter 8, you cannot go back to chapter 3 and change a decision that you made. And that is purposeful. That is a learning opportunity. I cannot go back to my 20s and undo some of the things that I did, unfortunately. But that is part of life, and that is how we learn. It is very experiential. It is very realistic. Fortunately, in this scenario, you're doing it in a simulator and not in the actual real life. So it helps a lot. And you can go back and redo it as many times as you want. So here we go. I saw high school student response. Is it readily available for high school students through OEE or some other way? So OEE licenses, and Sam and Sarah, feel free to chime in here, are just for ages 18 and above at this point. Money Experience does work with high schoolers, and we have some other funders in Massachusetts. If you are in high school and looking to get this in your high school, reach out to Tim. But OE also has additional programming. So Sam, jump in if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we do have another program called our Credit for Life Fair grant program, where we give grants to high schools across Massachusetts to run a Credit for Life Fair. I think Sarah put a link to our Credit for Life Fair page in the chat. We can put that in the chat again. But because of our procurement of this particular financial education program, we're only able to offer our money experience licenses to individuals who are over the either 18 or over the age of 18 for now. But like Zoe mentioned, Money Experience, Tim and the team have relationships with other funders in the state. So if you are interested in delivering Money Experience to a high school audience, they can definitely connect with you and get you started that way as well.
Thank you, Sam. Great. Any additional questions?
I think I saw one earlier, but just what is the tech requirement to run Money Experience?
Great
just
question.
about like what's needed. Yeah.
So we are basically browser based. So everything that happens in Money Experience happens on the cloud. We're very secure AWS based platform. So you can access us from a phone, tablet, or any computer. And this is really important to us because I know, again, accessibility. If you don't have your own laptop and you're using school computers, we want this to be just as accessible as if you had your own. So you can log in from anywhere. You can access exactly, pick up where you left off, and it works on every browser. We suggest Chrome for the smoothest, but it works really well on all browsers. Thank you, Evan. And in terms of the back end, one thing I did want to add, also very user friendly. It is, if you're trying to download the curriculum, things like that, access there, I might suggest using a desktop, but you can also access that from the back end and you can see your reports from anywhere. So one thing that I will add in terms of implementation that I think we had a question that touched on earlier, but ways that we would suggest using this program right now for internships. I think this is something that is great self-paced. You might want to do a quick touch base at some point. Ask what you or your intern is getting out of it, how it's helping kind of align their priorities with their internship. I think there's some really cool crossover there as you're starting to think about the beginning of your career. You can access and just have your interns self-register. If you do want to see reports and you have time to go over them, again, fill out that form. It would be great. And then for colleges and universities, we see a lot of different implementations. So you can do it in class. You can do it as part of an orientation program. So we see a lot of financial aid offices actually offer the program as a way to get students kind of thinking about how they're going to deal with their student loans and about why their financial aid matters. So that can be a really interesting way to do it. We can also, we see it used in student clubs and with, career counseling offices. That's a great one, especially if you're starting to think about how, what your major is going to be and how that might play into the rest of your life. That's a really interesting opportunity to go through Money Experience. So there's a lot of different ways you can use it. And as I said, the full classroom version, you can kind of put in as much time as you want, 10 to 12 hours of classroom time over a period, or maybe you just do, 15 minutes of classroom time every couple of weeks over the semester, whatever it is that you have time for. Cool. It's not looking like we have a ton more questions.
Thank you so much, Zoe. This was awesome. I knew we can stick around in case anyone else has any other questions, but otherwise, you can, as Zoe mentioned, email either their team or our team anytime. We're happy to set up a call if you want to get more details of how you can deliver this program to your audience. But we're really excited to continue offering this to as many young adults across Massachusetts as possible. It's a really unique and cool tool. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks,
and great
everyone.
to see you in chat form, Margaret. We have Dr.
Yes.
Brooks on the call. We love her. We're huge fans.
Seen
And
some
Scott,
good names in this chat.
Great questions.
And Scott, yes. They are our Bridgewater contingent. We adore them. All right, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We'll be on here, but feel free to reach out or hop off.
Thank you so much. Have a nice rest of your afternoon.
Thanks.